Alrighty, guys, and welcome back to the Basketball Fix podcast. We are back finally with another episode. I have currently been moving house, so it's been a pretty busy last couple of weeks, to say the least, and there will be some noises in the background. We've got a whole lot of construction in the background as well. You'll be hearing the reckless drivers of dump trucks and all sorts of stuff in the background. So really, really sorry about that. That'll be for the next couple of weeks, and hopefully after that, it should start to clear away as well. But what an off-season we are seeing in the NBL. I just want to give a massive shout out to the whole NBL community. What we are seeing right now is a product of all the hard work that everyone's been putting in for such a long period of time. And, arguably we're in for, if not the best NBL season of all time, I think it's going to be right up there as well, with so many new imports and yet to sign, and obviously so many returning faces who are re-signing as well for either the same team or different teams as well. Now, over the next few days, we're going to be going and sort of touching on every single NBL team's moves this offseason, who they've lost, who they've picked up, sort of talk about the game style. And also, I've checked this out. Go and check us out, I should say, on our Instagram at the Basketball Fix podcast. And what I've done over there as well is I've got a whole lot of fan questions. So today we're going to do it in alphabetical order. First team off the rank, the Adelaide 36ers, one of only two teams in the NBL as of right now, day of recording, who have completed their NBL 26 roster. So really exciting. Obviously, we get to deep dive into this team and have a bit of a chat. And like I mentioned, also answer a couple of these fan questions, because there are a whole lot of fan questions for the 36ers. But this team, when we have a bit of a look into this squad and what they have done over the offseason, clearly the biggest move, and it's nearly the biggest move in the NBL history when you look at it as well. Bryce Cotton joined the team in what was obviously a shocking deal. We've spoken about this at length, obviously, this off-season at the Basketball Fix. You can go check those episodes out as well. We'll link them in the description and also at the back of the video as well. But I more want to touch on how this team's going to play, because a number of things have been mentioned over the last couple of weeks. There's been, how's this going to work? How's the culture going to work out over there? We saw that happen last year, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm here to tell you guys this is going to work, I think, for a number of reasons. Because I think last season, and I've mentioned this a few times on different podcasts as well, Adelaide didn't know who their leader was. They didn't know who the guy was. It was Kendrick Davis and Montrezl Harrell, and they were constantly vying for superiority and the leadership gene, I guess, realistically as well, and sort of who was the head honcho, essentially. Now, when you've got Bryce Cotton on your team, all those things go away. You know clearly from day dot who is the head honcho, the El Jefe, as soon as you walk into that building. And I think that's the exciting thing for the Adelaide 36ers, because egos should be checked at the door, because you've got arguably the greatest NBL player of all time coming into your organization. And a lot of people have asked questions about Trez, and I'm a very big believer in Trez. I think Trez is going to be not a problem at all. You've seen him play with superstar athletes in the NBA. You've seen him be role player. You've seen him be a six man of the year. You've seen him play in different roles. Now, does he love a bit of theatrics? 100%. But that's what's made him who he is for his entire basketball career. And I don't think that's going to be a problem when you got, again, Bryce Cotton on your team, in your locker room. He's going to be checking everyone. He's got a great relationship with the head coach in Mike Wells as well. So I just think this team is really, really looking like a great contender this year. Obviously, they're a contender. Can they win the championship? That's the real question. We'll dive into that a little bit later. But in terms of the culture problems, I think they're all gone. Now, where I have some questions in terms of this team and where this team could potentially land is on the play style. Now, it's going to be an interesting team, because when you look at it and sort of the dynamics of who you're going to start, who works out well, you're probably looking at a Bryce Cotton, Dejan Vasiljevic, Flynn Cameron, Zylan Cheatham, and Montrezl Harrell starting lineup. Now, obviously, Big Ice, Isaac Humphries, is a guy who at the start of the offseason was said that he was going to be the centerpiece of the rebuild. Not the rebuild or the retool, and just basically whatever they were building, Ice was going to be the center of that. He now potentially doesn't even start for this team. And after all of the stuff that happened last year, obviously he was a very vocal person in the locker room last year as well. There is a lot going on from that standpoint as well. But you can't play from a strategic standpoint. You cannot play Montrezl Harrell and Isaac Humphries on the court at the same time. There is just no way in hell that will work. And there's no way in hell that the modern basketball era, where you need to be able to have three-point shooters, that two of those guys who aren't reliable three-point shooters on the court at the same time will work in the NBL. Now, I know you can go and say, well, they've got arguably the best, point guard, shooting guard duo in Bryce Cotton and Dejan Vasiljevic from the three-point shooting. Once again, though, you still need that big man who can stretch the floor at the four position to be able to allow a guy like an Isaac Humphries or a Montrezl Harrell inside to be able to do their best work. So There's so much you can talk about with this team as well. I think pace is going to be the most important thing. Playing at a fast pace, but having the right tempo. And there's slightly different things, obviously. When we're talking about pace, it's about how quick you can get up and down the court. But with tempo, it's how you can change that pace. You can go really, really fast. You can go fast. You can go medium. You can go slow. And you can really change up all the looks on the offensive end and the defensive end as well. Because we know, most importantly in the NBL, the defensive end is the biggest characteristic of winning an NBL championship. And that's where, obviously, Adelaide right now look like they're going to be very, very leaky, I guess you could say. They're probably going to give up a lot of points because we know Bryce is a good system defender. We know Dion is in the similar boat. You know, they're not the best defenders. They're pretty good. And then you've got Montrez, who showed at times he can be a great defensive player. Ice is the exact same as well. Zylan Cheatham really interests me. The way he can get up and down the court on both ends is going to be really incredible for the Adelaide 36ers as well. And then you've got Flynn Cameron, guys like Michael Harris, Isaac White, to name a couple of the guys coming off the bench as well this NBL season. So, you know, they're a relatively deep squad, which we probably didn't say last year. And Mike Wells didn't trust them. 7 or 8 man rotations were pretty much the way they went for the back end of the season. And it didn't really work out. We saw when they got into the playoffs that he had no one to trust. You know, Jason Kadee and Sunday Detch were pretty much the only 2 guys who he brought off the bench at certain points as well. So I guess there's a number of questions around the play style. I think it works. The quicker they play, I think the better off they're going to be because you've got the wings in Zylan Cheatham and Flynn Cameron who can both handle the ball, plus push the pace in transition, and are really good playmakers as well. You've obviously got Montrez, who is a back-it-down player, but also loves to highlight plays as well with the alley-oops over the top in the pick and roll, and also in fast break as well. So they've got the ability to play fast, and we know that's the modern style, especially in the NBL. If you can play fast and have a lot of bodies who can do that, you win NBL championships as well. I think Tassie's probably the only outlier in that, but obviously at the same time as well, we know what the most important thing is. I said it a couple minutes ago. It's all about defense. But I don't know. I want to hear what everyone has to say about the Adelaide 36ers. What is their game style? Comment down below and let us know, because are they going to play a reserved game style? I just can't see it. I can't see Bryce Cotton, Montrezl Harrell, Dion Vasiljevic, Zylan Cheatham, Isaac Humphries all playing reserved basketball and playing a slow tempo. It's going to be fast. But will their depth be enough? And also, is the defensive, I guess, inability at the moment worrying you? I'd love to hear from all NBL fans, especially the ones at the Adelaide 36ers as well, because it is a very interesting question for sure. Now, one thing I want to touch on, and we spoke about it quietly there, is their depth. And I think they've got sneaky good depth. And, you know, when we look at it, you've obviously got Isaac White, who, massive shout out to him. He's absolutely dominating over here in West Australia for the Rockingham Flames, leading their team. That team is number 1 in the West at the moment as well. He's averaging, I think, around 28, 29 points per game as well. Has had multiple 30-point games, has had some really, really good games as well. Massive shots. He's ready for another NBL season where he just continues doing what he does and just pretty much just gets no recognition, which I find absolutely groundbreaking from the NBL media. You've obviously got Michael Harris as well, another guy who I'm expecting to see a leap from this year. I think he'll get some minutes now. I think he'll be able to be seen as one of those, 8 or 9 men on the rotation as well who can really play up to a high level. He's a really good two-way player, 3-and-D sort of guy, which is really nice for the LA 36ers. He's a guy who you can chuck on a guy like, you can probably look at him like a guy like Matthew Dellavedova, something to those extents as well, who, hasn't got necessarily the most quickness and most speed in the NBL, but a guy who you can definitely shut down as well. So Michael Harris is a great acquisition. And Flynn Cameron as well. He's probably not necessarily in the depth department because I think he will start for this team. They need a bona fide playmaker, and I think he's the best to do it out of him, Bryce, and Dion Vasiljevic. I think when he starts, he'll be able to control the pace. He's a bigger guard. I think they work well in the NBL as well. Guys like Will McDowell-White, massive shout out to him. They obviously work well with him for a number of years there in New Zealand. So I think this team is really building in the right direction, and I'm so excited to see Zylan Cheatham in this team. And back in the NBL, I think that's one thing that we've got to give the NBL a little bit of credit for, is that they've been active in all facets of basketball everywhere, I should say, but they're bringing back returning faces at a pretty high rate over the last couple of seasons. There was probably stages there where you'd come over to the NBL, you'd experience it, but you would never come back. And now we're seeing a number of guys go elsewhere, but then realize that, hey, this is where I've probably got the best chance to be put on a spotlight for the NBA. And Zylan, 29 years of age, potentially is looking to get another contract in the NBA. He could go over to Europe for more money, Japan for more money, but he's come to the NBL because he knows that this is the best league to have eyes on him and also have a best chance of making it back to the NBA as well. So that's a massive shout out to what the NBL is really producing, and I'm really excited to sort of see what they do as well. But these are short, sharp episodes. We're pretty much touching on a few things, but the majority of these episodes are based around fan questions, and we've got a number of them. We put up a story, like I mentioned, at the Basketball Fix podcast on Instagram. Go and check it out. There is so much content coming out over the next couple of weeks in particular, and there are going to be a lot of signings as well. But we've got a number of questions. I think we've got about 12 questions here. So we'll pick a couple of the best ones and we'll answer them as well. But the first one is, do we think we are done with our imports? And it's a very easy one to answer. You're 100% done with your imports. 3 imports locked away, secured, and done for the NBL 26 question. So we will promptly move on. Now, this one really interested me a little bit. Massive shout out to Ryder here. Will we ever see Trez, Isaac Humphries, and Zylan Cheatham on the court at the same time? Now, this is a question in which I think Mike Wells tried to answer somewhat last year. So there was these things around when Montrezl Harrell signed of how do they fit in Jarrell Martin, Isaac Humphries, and Montrezl Harrell on the court at the same time. And Mike Wells said there's going to be times where we play all 3 of those guys on the court at the same time and run them in a 5-man rotation. Now, it never really materialized last year, but Jarrell Martin is not even close to the same player as Zylan Cheatham is. So if you are looking at it from, you have obviously Zylan at the 3, Trez at the 4, Ice at the 5. I think it does work for certain periods of the game. Now, like I mentioned, though, you probably can't do it for massive stretches in games, purely based on the lack of 3-point shooting from all 3 of those guys to a certain degree as well. But there will be stages where we do see all 3 of those guys on the court. Now, there is a world 100% where the starting lineup is Bryce Cotton, Dejan Vasiljevic, Zylan Cheatham, Montrezl Harrell, and Isaac Humphries. Do I think it's going to win many basketball games or get them off to good starts? I don't necessarily believe so. That's why I think they're going to have to go for a more balanced approach and play one of Trez or Isaac Humphries off the bench, which is a very handy rotational player as well. But I definitely do see and will think that they will play that at some stages throughout the season just to give it a bit of a go. You may as well. They're very talented and high IQ players. It could work and could be a little bit of a difference maker for the Adelaide 36ers and NBL 26. Now, I've got another question here from Jish Fish. Now, he's asked, list one bad thing about their off-season. This is a question when I saw this, I actually laughed and I thought pretty hard. I was like, okay, what can I sort of think about here? What can we hone in on for the Adelaide 36ers? Because they haven't, necessarily been short of controversy over the last couple of years. We've spoken about it extensively on the Basketball Fix, the culture problems, the inability to be able to keep head coaches for a number of years, the multiple changeovers and that thing. Obviously, last NBL season, there was plenty of controversy between Kendrick Davis, Mike Wells. Obviously, Isaac Humphries had his fair share of moments as well in the NBL media space. I think from an Adelaide 36ers perspective, the most positive thing to come out of this is not just Bryce Cotton. It's the fact that they've gone through a whole offseason. As of right now, hope I don't jinx them, but they've gone through a whole offseason without any controversy. And you probably sit there and you go, okay, Adelaide's probably been a team who most would see every single season as a 4th or 5th best team in the league. They're a genuine top 2 contender now. And they've done it all right. They've gone and spent the money. As the NBL salary cap allows you to do, if an owner wants to spend over, that is on the owner. They can spend as much money as they want. They've just got to pay the tax when it does come around to the time. So Adelaide 36ers, I've got to give them a massive pat on the back because I didn't necessarily see them retaining Kendrick Davis. I didn't think that was going to happen. All reports are and were during the offseason early on that Montrezl Harrell was not a chance to re-sign. There was multiple people reaching out saying a 5% chance, 10% chance at most for Montrezl Harrell to return to the Adelaide 36ers. There was talk that the Adelaide 36ers wanted long-term sort of players. They wanted Trez on a 2-year deal, and that was the only thing holding back Trez from signing with Adelaide 36ers. He wasn't able to commit or wanting to commit to that second season as of right now. But they get a 1-year deal with him locked away, and that's a great thing for the Adelaide 36ers. Obviously, Isaac Humphries, maybe that's the one that you could probably think about when you say bad thing about their off-season. But it hasn't necessarily been bad for their off-season. Them promising the keys to Isaac Humphries. This is his team. We're building around him. Then you go and get Bryce Cotton, Montrezl Harrell, and Zylan Cheatham. Well, you're not necessarily building around him anymore. So I think there hasn't really been one bad thing about the Adelaide 36ers off season. And as a NBL fan, that makes me really excited as well, because you want to see a historic club, a club who's had so much success in the past, a club who has an incredible fan base, have success in the NBL as well every now and then. Now, we'll get into a couple more here as well. Got another one here from Hologram. How do they control the egos in the locker room? As I mentioned here, you've got your El Jefe, you've got your Al Pacino, you've got your main man, you've got Bryce Cotton there. There is no worries on my end, I should say, when it does come down to who controls the locker room and all the egos as well. I know Bryce Cotton is an absolute through and through leader. Seeing him in Perth for such a long period of time, it didn't matter what was going on. He can switch it on the court, but off the court, he is constantly the best leader as well, and has learned from some of the best leaders as well in the NBL, with Damian Martin and Jesse Wagstaff, to name a couple of them as well. So I've got no problems at all when it comes down to egos, how they control them. I think it's going to be really, really good for the Adelaide 36ers. And, again, as I mentioned just before, it's a massive shift from previous seasons as well in the NBL. Now, Seb Barty is a massive fan of the basketball fix. He's got a lot of questions here, and we'll sort of think about, which one we want to answer here as well. But his first one that we'll probably look at, he goes, surely we lied to Cameron to get him into Adelaide, promised roles that are no longer available, and the Cotton effect. This is an interesting one, because I don't think they necessarily lied to Flynn Cameron. I think at the time when they signed Flynn Cameron, the conversations and the sort of thought of getting Bryce Cotton was probably not even a thought for the LA 36ers. They were trying to get one of the most highly talented young players in the NBL into their team very quickly, and looking to build with him as seasons go on. So I'm not necessarily of the belief they lied to Flynn Cameron. I think they just told him exactly how it was. And when you've got the opportunity to go out there and get the greatest player of all time, bring back Montrezl Harrell, bring in Zylan Cheatham, you're going to do that. Because at the end of the day, Flynn Cameron wants to win a championship. And he wants to be surrounded by the best possible players, like every other player in the NBL does, to have the best chance of winning a championship. So, things like, did they lie to him? Did they sell him the wrong dream? I don't think so. I think they went into it saying, hey, we're looking to have a really, really explosive offseason. We'll give you whatever money you want. We'll lock you away for 3 years, and let us go to work and find the best possible team to put around yourself. And that's why I still think he'll start for the LA 36ers. I don't necessarily think he's going to go to a rotational player like he was in Melbourne. He'll be a starter. I think Mike Wells absolutely loves him. He flew to New Zealand to go and catch up with him, to sign him, to get the deal over the line. So there for not one moment are going to leave, Flynn Cameron in the lurch. I think he'll start for a number of games this NBL season, and he's going to be a massive, important piece to the franchise as well going forward. So I'm not necessarily sure that, when it comes down to it, that they lied to him. All Things Adelaide 36ers Major Fan Podcast on Instagram has asked, what is the player you think will take a surprise leap forward this season? Now, this one's interesting because there's a number of ways you could go about it, but I'm going to lock in Flynn Cameron. I think he's going to make the biggest leap forward this NBL season, because he's going to get the opportunity, like I just mentioned, but he's also going to be able to showcase a number of parts of his game. You've got the two-way ability of being able to be a good defender, a good playmaker, and a good scorer. Everyone loves a left-handed shooter. Let me just put that out there as well. So I think he's going to have the biggest leap forward this season for the Adelaide 36ers. I'm excited about the prospect of him as well. I just think there's so many parts to his game that he's still yet to unlock at the NBL level. And playing alongside guys like Bryce Cotton, Dejan Vasiljevic in those guard combinations, and even Zylan Cheatham as a forward as well, it's really going to allow him to have no pressure and just be able to play his game, work into the season, find his feet in this team. And once he finds his feet, he's going to be a dominant player for them as well. So I'm looking forward most to seeing him play in NBL 26 for the Adelaide 36ers, and wouldn't be surprised if he has one of the biggest leaps, not just in the Adelaide 36ers, but in the NBL as well. Now, next question here, Blake Pulich. He's asked, Trez's suspension for positive drug test in China, ? Now, this might be a little bit controversial, but I just don't really care about it. I think, when we're talking about, this sort of situation, I just really don't get the whole stigma around weed, essentially. That's what it was. It was a positive testing to weed. Now, we see it in the NBA all the time. A lot of guys are campaigning to have that as a drug taken off the ASADA for the American Basketball League, essentially, the drug testing committee. I'm not promoting drug use right now, and that is 100%, but it's not a performance enhancing drug that, other drugs are. It's not a steroid. It's not something that's going to improve your game. It's just a recreational use drug, which is it's legal in America in pretty much all the states as well. So I'm not necessarily too caught up on this suspension. It's not even a suspension for the NBL. Let's just make that clear right now. He's not going to miss any games in the NBL. So when you look at a thing like weed, when we get into other certain drugs as well, which we're not going to go into a full drug talk right now, but you can understand maybe why there is some sort of a suspension there as well. But something like weed, which has been floated the idea of being legal in Australia for a number of years now, I'm not necessarily sure I'm too hung up on it. And I think we should just genuinely move on from the fact that this happened in China when he was playing in the CBA. Who really cares? It ain't going to affect his NBL chances. It's not going to affect any NBL games, LA 36ers. And I think it's not even going to be one thing that affects his time back in the NBL as well, in NBL 26. So we'll leave that one there, and we'll round out the last question here as well from Dan De Silva. Championship question mark. Well, this team is 100% in the picture for the NBL championship. But as we all know, you've got to have a really good defense. Top 3 or 4 defense at most. Maybe top 5, but you've got to have a really historical offense, which I think this team definitely could. But I'm interested to see how the other 36ers go in NBL 26. What are your thoughts, though? Let us know down in the comments below as well of this YouTube video, even in Spotify. Reach out to us at the Instagram at the Basketball Fix as well, and let us know what you think about the Adelaide 36ers off-season. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as well, breaking down a couple of the big moves from the Adelaide 36ers this off-season, and we'll be back very shortly when we break down the Brisbane Bullets off-season and answer a few more of your fan questions. But until next time, though, that has been your Basketball Fix, and we hope you've gotten your Basketball Fix.